Creating a learning environment is one of the very first steps that a good educator does to establish her classroom, to establish how the entire year is going to go. Now, it has more to do with how the teacher herself is oriented as opposed to the physical layout of the classroom. Now, it's still important to make sure that the room has a flow to it. You don't want things that are distracting or that keep students from being able to access certain things. But the classroom, especially with educational technology, is more about how the teacher approaches the students. Is she someone that the students can trust, someone that the students can take a risk with in learning? Or is she an overlord and students can't talk to her because it's too scary? My approach to teaching is I want to understand the students, to build a rapport. When I read Dave Burgess's book, Teach Like a Pirate, I was flabbergasted. Not because it was anything new, but this was the way how I was taught to teach. When I first started out, I was a very ambitious teacher. We did fun things. We did cooking. We did cool experiments. We wrote. We just had a lot more freedom in the classroom. Unfortunately, I had some traumatic experiences with an administrator who was new to the job himself. He didn't quite know where to focus his frustrations, and unfortunately, that turned into micromanaging. Now, I don't mean to put this on him, but as a new teacher, I was continually corrected. And so, what that resulted, and the choice that I did in order to avoid conflict in that situation, is I brought myself down. I started to do minimal things with my students. School was very boring with me under this administration. I ended up doing a lot of busy work, worksheets, and that was what I was instructed to do, and so I did it, and just had a lot of problems. When I had a new administrator, she actually told me that I was like a turtle who continually had its head thumped every time it stuck its head out of its shell. And I didn't know what she meant until I read Burgess's book. And it brought me through a very painful time, but I was able to dredge through that. And instead of letting it sit there, I was able to just carve it out and let it go. To understand that it's okay to be a passionate teacher. It's okay to have a sense of humor with your students. It's okay to trust your students. It's okay to get them involved in things that you're excited about and that they're excited about too in order to achieve these goals. It was a painful and yet very freeing moment for me. And so I just really appreciated this learning. I've really enjoyed all the lessons that I've learned throughout this grad school program. New challenges for me, new learning areas, but also just a healing time and identifying myself as an educator and knowing that I am on the right track, that I am okay. And so in creating a learning environment, because I trust myself, I'm therefore able to trust my students more. And I've always known that with students, they live up to the expectations that you have of them. But as an educator, I have to evaluate myself and understand what really are those expectations that I have. Do I just expect them to get a grade? Or do I expect them to learn? Do I expect them to behave in class? Or do I expect myself to just endure them? And this could be a daily evaluation of ourselves. We have to be in that right center to have that anchor of confidence to hang on to. And now that I'm working with high schoolers, I really have to understand where I'm at because they are at such a stage where they're so much more sensitive. They react in a lot more vocal ways. They might react very dramatically, but they're still mirroring the energy that I'm outputting to them. And so just making sure that I know where I'm at, that I'm confident with who I am, that if a student freaks out and is mad at me and being completely disrespectful, I need to understand that maybe there's something more going on behind the scenes than what they're portraying to me. And not take it personal. Water off a duck's back. It becomes an important teaching tool. In creating a learning environment, again, it's mostly establishing that trust, that rapport, that connection with the students, in having the students help set up the rules and what does respectful behavior look like, and them creating the rules that we put in the classroom. What are we going to abide by? They have a hand in it, and so again, I'm partnering with the students to have them build a community, and that's really what we are. We are a learning community. It's not just school. It's not just some place where you go. This is a place where you learn. This is a place where you come to be incredible, but we have to agree on how we are going to interact with each other. One of the things I shared with my students this last year is that one of the things that we all want, and we may not know that we want it, but one of the things that we all want from each other is respect. That's one of the most fundamental things that we want, and especially in a learning community, that respect is essential. Even if it's respect for ourselves, we don't give that too often, but it's really, really important. So establishing that trust, that rapport, that understanding with students that this is how things are going to go. For a learning community artifact, I shared a project that I collaborated on with a group of my peers. Our task was to create a serious game based on the Hunger Games. And I worked with an incredible group of people. They put so much work and effort into this, and just the collaboration was phenomenal, and I enjoyed this so much. It was also my first introduction to Minecraft, and as I mentioned before, I play video games, and just really the opportunity to be able to play games for homework was great. We were only supposed to propose a game to a class and see what they thought of the concept. We essentially created the game as far as we possibly could, and we were about ready to send it through with classes. I mean, they could have played it, and the point was not to just have a game and ooh, there, wasn't that fun. We wanted to give the students an experience, and then after they had that experience, whether the theme was the Hunger Games, and so they were supposed to be living within inside District 12 and having the restrictions on them and the rules that they had to abide by, and with the understanding that some probably wouldn't abide by the rules, and even switching that and having some of them be peacekeepers and having to enforce those rules that were on others. We want to create this experience and then bring the students together and discuss what that experience was for them. Did they break rules? What did they think about that? How did they feel being under these restrictions? And even implying that thought into, this is what the Hunger Games presented. Is there a possibility that our own society is headed that way? And what can you do about it? I just love that games like this create an atmosphere where students don't have to be afraid to take risks because they're playing a video game. That's one of the things that I love about game-based learning, is that you almost want to fail. You don't want to fail, but when you do, you don't give up. Maybe after you fail 1,000 times, it's a little frustrating and you need to step away before you break the console. But when you fail, you actually feel out where your barriers are. Like, oh, I'm going to go run up this side. Oh, wait, there's a wall there. I can't do it. I know that that's where the boundaries are. And so in an environment like this, it allows students to try new things, to do something different, and even to give a perspective that we might not have been able to give in a real life situation. So there's a lot on this link proposing our game. And again, I just truly loved working with this group and being able to come up with something amazing.